Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another installment of movie reviews. And today I'm going to be reviewing the hot new, anticipated supernatural thriller 2025 Sinners. Directed by Ryan Coogler. Let's get into this mix. Woo! Let's get into this mix. So, the movie starts off, being narrated by Annie, who is, works in voodoo, and she narrates how powerful music is. That, it's so powerful that it attracts, it brings people together, but it also, attracts, evil spirits to, locations and whatnot. Then we get, a close shot of, our boy Michael B. Jordan, played by Stacks and Smoke. Now, the thing that I liked about, this right here is that, the twin brothers, they represented, the crossroads. For those of you, the crossroads. One brother was serious and stern. The other one was, laid back and playful. You feel me? Yeah, one was laid back and playful. So anyway, they come and meet with, this, clan leader, to purchase this building, and he was like, and they, talk to him, they sitting up there chopping it up, and like, hey, you wash these floors, and he's sitting up there chewing on his tobacco, spitting it out and shit. And it was like, hey, this the last dime you ever gonna see from us. If we catch you or any one of your clan buddies, we gonna kill them on our property line. You feel me? And he was like, hey, the clan don't exist no more. And bruh, they came back all the way back from, Chicago to they came back all the way from Chicago to, Clarksdale, Mississippi. Mind you, this is this is 1932 Clarksdale, Mississippi. So, one brother, he goes to recruit people. The other one, goes, to get the mother of his child to, cook fish, fish and whatnot. So, yeah. So, Smoke was gets, banners and stuff and paint from, this supply store. Mind you, the supply store is split into two. One is, run by the mom, on one side, on one side of town, and then the other one is run by her daughter. Her daughter is running the one for the black folks, and then her mama is running the one for the white folks. And Smoke winds up tasking this girl to watch the truck, honk the horn if like somebody try to boost the truck. Obviously she does, and Smoke shoots one of them in the butt and then the other one in the leg, and then goes up to the store owner and gives him a couple things, couple dollars to get him patched up. Then I forgot to tell y'all, but that's when we meet Preacher Boy, aka Sammy, Miles played by Miles Canton, bruh. After he did his quota for the day, he goes to his dad, who's actually a preacher. He was like, hey, gets his help to with the scripture and all that. Then it was like, hey, I'm back in time for service in the morning. He was like, where you gotta be at, son? He was like, you going down to play at that club with them drunkards and people that shirk their responsibilities and sweat all over each other? He was like, yeah. He was like, hey, you dance with the devil gonna come find you. Something like that. Dude, this movie was crazy. He was and then that's when you see Smoke and Stack pull up, and they got the truck hidden with all the supplies and stuff. They meet they see a snake or whatever, so they kill it and then dump it. He was like, hey, and Smoke and Stack, they was like, hey, I don't think we need to do this today. He was like, come on, it's all open at night. He was like, come on, it's all open at night. It can either be a flop or, a great success. And so Stack convinced Smoke to set up shop. And so, and then this when we get Preacher Boy, he was like, hey, Smoke was like, hey, I'm gonna need you to keep an eye on this fool. He was like, I do my best. He was like, no, you go do what you told. It's so they all go their separate ways. Meanwhile, Smoke goes to see his wife, whose son, whose baby that passed away. And then they wind up reconciling, and then she winds up I think rejuvenating his mojo bag to that keeps him safe, for protection. And so after that, she was like, hey, it was I did all my power to keep you safe, keep you and your crazy brother of yours safe. And here you are, standing right in front of me. He was like, it still hurts coming back here. I miss you and I love you. And so, after that, they wind up having sex, and then it cuts to everybody getting ready. They wind up meeting another character. We wind up meeting another character. Actually two characters, Cornbread and Delta Slim. One, he was Stack was like, hey, I'm gonna need somebody to bodyguard tonight at a little juke joint. He was like, I forgot what Stack said, slick, but Cornbread was getting ready to beat the brakes off of him until Stacks was talking mad slick, and I was like, that tracks. And then he agrees to do that. And then we beat Delta Slim up, playing on the harmonica. He was like, hey, and Stacks wise up, like, hey, we got a little Jew joint that we playing at tonight, like $40 a night tonight. Delta Slim was like, hey, you might have it $40 tonight. You feel me? He was like, not only that, but I got this beard straight from Chicago, and I guess that does it, cause Slim was like, you know what? I might as well go ahead and do it. He was like, you know what? I might as well go ahead and do it. And so, he winds up agreeing, and then we get married. Stax's, love interest. She was like, hey, my mama just died. He's like, what you doing here? He was like, my mama just died. She was like, my mama just died. And it was like, you ain't send flowers to her and none of that. But he was like, after, that one night that we spent, that one night, I just thought you'd would have came back to me. He was like, no, you thought wrong. And, he sends her on her way. And then after that, everybody winds up, setting everything up. Everything goes smooth. Sammy Boy winds up meeting Pearline. Pearline's like, hey, Pearline's like, hey, how you doing? She was like, we going down to the juke, playing down to the juke joint. You coming? She was like, maybe. And then everybody gets, set up for the juke joint. Delta Slim winds up playing. And then everybody gets set up. The only one who was enthusiastic about it was Stacks. So after that, you know what I'm saying? So after that, Sammy, aka Preacher Boy, winds up going up on stage, and he winds up singing. But before he winds up singing, we get a backstory about how music has the power to transcends time and space. Yeah, music has a way of transcending time and space, and transcended time and space. And so, after that, transcended time. Yeah, music has a way of transcending time and space, and that, it has the power to bring everybody together. And so, after that, Delta Slim was like, hey, tell them who you are, where you from. Sammy was like, hey, I'm from, this plantation right here. They call me Preacher Boy on the counter, like, my daddy's the pastor. And so he winds up singing and playing the guitar. When I tell you, like, this song was so powerful, like, it attracted, like, it brought the past, the present, the future, like, all the ancestral planes together. And then, like, it even brought a vampire by the name of Remick to, his location, because Remick was, hunted down by these, monster hunters, these Native American monster hunters. And so, the only refuge he could get was, like, these clan members' shelter, at which he winds up killing them and turning them into vampires. So, after that, I'm telling you, when he, like, set everybody off, like, he wind up bringing everybody together. I'm talking about past, present, future. Like, it was I'm talking about, like, to the point where, like, metaphorically, burnt, like, the music was so good, burnt the roof off of that place, like, burned it down to the ground, like, and, like, that scene had me hyped, like, so hyped. But anyway, after that, we find out that, him and Pearline, they wind up making out, and they wind up having sex. And then Stax is talking to Smoke, and then they chopping it up. He was like, hey, read that top line. He was like, what's up? He was like, that's where the plantation money at. I was like, oh. So right off the bat, it was more of a get rich quick scheme for Smoke than it was for Stack. And Stack winds up seeing Mary come through the door. He was like, hey, Smoke wasn't having it. He was like, hey, Smoke wasn't having it at all. He was like, hey, you get her before I get you. He was like, hey, I got it. He was like, what you doing here? He was like, I came to enjoy the music. He was like, the music is just fine, over where you come from. He was like, hey, I need you to get out. She was like, no. She was like, what does it matter to you anyway? He was like, hey, go get you a nice white rich man and, lead this to us. She was like, I don't want a nice rich man. I want you. She was like, I wanted you. She was like, hey, if anybody notice you, they'll report back to, the triple K's from, and like, hey, he was like, they'll report back and like everything gonna get messed up. And she was like, hey, I ain't want nobody else. I only wanted you. He was like, hey, I broke it off with you to keep you safe. And I knew it wasn't gonna be here. And I knew it wasn't gonna be with me. So he was like, hey, I love you. He was like, hey, I love you and I miss you. And so, after that, then Pearline goes up on the scene, and she was like, she sang her heart out. Like whatever Preacher Boy did, she sang her heart out in that song. Had the club jumping, and then that's when Remick and his crew came up on the scene. It was like, hey, we musicians, we wanna play with y'all tonight. So it was Stack, Mary, Annie, Delta Slim, like, bruh. And then, yeah, Delta Slim, and he was like, no, you can't come up here, bro. Like everything's just fine over here. Like, going back to, where it is you came from. Like, nah. So they go, Cornbread, like, leaves to, relieve himself. And then he gets killed by them. And so he comes back, and then, like, he was like, hey, like, we all need to be kind to one another. He was like, everybody was like, what? He was like, no. And it was like, hey, like, something don't seem right. They done killed you and turned you into a Hank. He was like, if you don't know, a Hank back in the day, that's a vengeful spirit. Back in the day. So she was like, hey, how come you can't just walk yourself, right past this? Back in the day, vampires, they had to, like, back in the day, you had to invite the vampires into your establishment to, like, for them to get, like, powers. And, like, not powers, but, like, it's more of a permission thing. Like, you had to invite the evil inside of your establishment or wherever it is that you went to. So, after that, like, Cornbread was like, hey, I need to get paid. He was like, and so Smoke tricks Cornbread by, pretending to hand over the money, and then he shoots him, and then, like, Cornbread tries to bite him, he shoots him, and then locks the door. Meanwhile, after that, Mary and Stack, they wind up talking, and then Sammy and Smoke wind up talking. He was like, hey, I might, go off on my own. He was like, hey, where you gonna go to? He was like, I don't know. He was like, hey, he was like, hey, I figured y'all, might, y'all left. Y'all went to Chicago. He was like, Chicago? He was like, yeah. He was like, you can't tell me how to live my life. At this, that, and the third, I'm grown. He was like, boy. He was like, Smoke was like, boy. He was like, if I catch you playing in one of these jukes, I kill you myself. And he was like, you might as well go shoot me now, cause I'm leaving the plantation. He was like, boy, I'm a soldier, boy, and you just gave me a command. It, like, pulled the gun out on him, didn't shoot him. Then I was like, you sure about that? I was like, bruh. I'm like, you sure about what you talking about, sir? And so, after that, Mary convinces Stack to give her a gun so that they could go ahead and shake down Remick and them. She winds up talking to them. They wind up, like, playing not too far ahead, nearby. And she winds up talking to them, and she was like, and she, since something's wrong, she pulled a gun out on them. And so she left, and then she wound up leaving. He wound up, like, floating, and, like, bites her and turns her into one of either bites her or scratches her and turns her into one of them. She winds up like, hey, ain't you gonna, like, let me in, Cornbread? And he was like, hey, come on in. And, you know, they wind up like, her and Stacks, they wind up, you know, having sex, and she winds up biting him, killing him, and then Smoke winds up shooting Mary because now she's a vampire, and she was like, hey, we gonna kill every last one of y'all, and then runs out, and so the party's over. We get Grace, the shopkeeper's wife, and so she was like, hey, what now? You know, he was like, hey, these is vampires, they ain't haints, they ain't evil spirits, you know. Everybody was like, hey, what do we do? He was like, we need garlic, we need bullets, we need steaks. And so, you know, after that, you know, Sammy goes to check on, you know, check and make sure everything is cool, because they hear a noise in one of the rooms. And once you know it, is Stack, but he's now turned into a vampire. So, you know, he winds up busting through the door to get out. And he winds up pouring pickled garlic on him, which in turn hurts him because, you know, vampires. So he winds up running off. They turn Cornbread, him, Grace's wife, and so like their numbers are like continuing to grow. So after that, she was like, hey, you know, like they wound up coming back and it was like, hey, you know, after we done here, we gonna pay, you know, the clans a visit, and we gonna, you know, we gonna come united together, you know, we gonna have our own little community together right here on Earth. And it was like, yeah, no. And then Stack was like, hey, bruh, I can't do this without you. It's them or me, bro. And then that's when we get that famous meme, no vision. Like, and so, you know, after that, they wind up, you know, locking everything down. And he was like, hey, you know, we just got to hold up till in the morning. Delta Slim was trying to, like, talk some sense into Grace. You know, everybody eats, like, a clove of garlic to, like, see who's a vampire or not, you know. If they you know, eat it and nothing happens to them, then they all clear. But if they eat it and like they get like a reaction to it, then they a vampire. Obviously, everybody does it. You know, some were more apprehensive than others. Pearline, she was, you know, apprehensive. He was like, he pulls a gun out on her. Sammy was like, you know, hey, she ain't no vampire Smoke. He was like, bro, don't question me. You know better than to question me. And so she takes the garlic. Then Delta Slim like everybody goes around the room, takes the garlic. Delta Slim like takes the garlic, has the reaction, but like I guess like the garlic was trying to like absorb like all the alcohol within his body, because he was shaking and going on. He was like, it had like a little kick to it. So like he was like, hey, I drank too much, I'm fine. And so Grace was like, you know, they hear music off in the distance. Like, when I tell you, like, the vampires, they pulled in deep. Like, I was like, hold on, like, deep. To which, like, she was frantic because Remick was like, hey, we gonna pay your shop in the town a visit, like, we'll make it quick for like Lisa. And so, which prompted her to like let all the vampires in. He was like, come on, you motherfuckers. And like, bruh, I was like, come on, bruh. I was like, come on, B. I was like, that wasn't the time to do all of that. And so like, she let the vampires in, and so now it's just a bloodbath. Like, some vampires are getting killed, some of the people that were in the Jew joint got killed, got gripped up. So like, Annie got killed by Stack, but before then she was like pulled Smoke aside, and she was like, hey, if I get turned, like before I get turned, I need you to put a stake through my heart. I got somebody on the other side waiting to see me, and she's waiting to see you too. So, after she got bit, Smoke winds up, putting stake through her heart, which prompted, Mary to yell out and scream. She was like, hey, like, no. And then Stack pulled Mary out because Grace had wind up making a Molotov and throwing it at Remick. Remick, like, smacked it away, and it, caught on fire, which prompted her to, like, get tossed to the side and get set on fire. And, like, she wind up killing one of the vampires. And then she was, like, it was just an awesome scene of her, like, getting, like, catching on fire and killing the vampire while they're on fire. And so they wind up going upstairs. Delta Slim was like, hey, y'all go upstairs, I got this, I'm gonna cover y'all escape. And so he winds up cutting himself with a glass bottle. And she was like, and everybody was like, hey, okay, alright, bet. And so they get ambushed by Remick, and then Remick winds up biting Pearline. Pearline, like, winds up turning, and Stacks winds up fighting with Smoke. Smoke's like, hey, why you doing this? I can't do this without you. This, that, and the third. Turns out Smoke made a deal with Stack to, like, leave Sammy alone, to let him live out the rest of his life, to grow old and live out the rest of his life. Meanwhile, Smoke tells Sammy to run, and he jumps off of a high place from the club, winds up, breaking his leg, and then all the vampires wind up, surrounding the building, going to the back of the building. Preacher Boy gets cornered by Remick, and so it was almost like a hive mind type of thing, because he winds up reciting scriptures, telling them all of, like, the memories and stuff. And so Preacher Boy done had enough. He winds up smacking, like, breaking his guitar over Remick's head, and, like, the metal embedded inside of the guitar winds up lodging itself inside of Remick's head, to which, it causes him pain, which in turn causes the rest of the vampires pain. And so Smoke winds up stabbing Remick in the heart with a wooden stake, and everybody winds up, all the vampires wind up dying. Remick winds up going out in like a ball of fire. It gets shot up into the sky. Stack winds up, talking to Sammy, and he was like, "Hey, bury that guitar." He was like, "Hey, I love you. Go on, get out of here, live your life. Bury that guitar." He was like, "So you didn't get this from, another famous blues player?" He was like, "Who told you that?" Preacher Boy was like, "Stack." He was like, "You lying, bruh." He was like, "That was our dad's guitar." He was like, "Bury that guitar, live your life, love you." And so he winds up, him and Sammy, they wind up, and so him and Sammy, they wind up getting this trunk off of this car, from back behind the car, and it turns out it was like, all his, military stuff, like his helmet, couple guns, ammo, this ammo bag. And so, after that, he winds up, waiting in behind the bushes, for the Klans people. And so, like, he winds up doing like a full frontal assault on some Call of Duty type stuff, and like taking everybody out, like taking the main leader out, his, the Klansmen and all that. He gets shot in the stomach, but he was like, hey, what, bop. He was, I'm talking about taking everybody out. He winds up losing quite a bit of blood. He took his mojo bag off to like signify, like, hey, I could like use the protection and live forever, but like I, like lose that connection between me, my wife, and my child. So like he winds up tossing it and throwing it on the ground. And then he sees, both his wife, and he sees Ann and, they baby, and then like he passes on with them. Passes on and, meets them in the afterlife. Then we cut to, Preacher Boy. We cut to a Preacher Boy and, showing back up at the church, and, him getting a talking to by his, getting a sermon by his dad. His dad was like, "Hey, give me the guitar, give me the guitar, give me the guitar." And Preacher Boy winds up leaving. The movie cuts off and to, Chicago, Illinois. I think it was 1990, where we get an older Preacher Boy, and he's, finishing up his show. He names it Pearline after, his love interest. After everything was, going good and with the show, his bodyguard like comes up. He's like, "Hey, boss, it's two individuals out here. They said they wanted to meet you. They'll pay you like $200 in cash for it." He was like, "Hey, that don't bother me none." And so, and wouldn't you know it, it was Stack and Mary, dressed in like 90s attire. They wind up, meeting Preacher Boy, and Preacher Boy winds up playing them a song. He winds up, telling them, "Hey, just before the sunrise, it was, the best feeling ever. Was it that for you?" He was like, "Yeah." And so we get like a flashback, like everybody contributing to everybody contributing to, the Jew joint. And so, and then like just before that, Stack winds up smelling, that Preacher Boy is about to, pass on from the world. He was like, hey, I can make it to where you never feel no pain again. I can turn you into one of us. He was like, nah, I done lived my life. I done seen enough. Like, I'm good. And so after he, sings his song, Stack winds up, tossing like the $100, like the 200 on the counter, and they wind up parting ways, and that's how the movie ended. Overall, this was an awesome movie, and I recommend it to anybody who likes thrillers, horror, or just of that sort. So, but all in all, like, I'm your host with the most, Helpful Angel. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace. This has been 2025 Sinners by Ryan Coogler, directed by Ryan Coogler. I'll catch y'all in the next video. Peace.